Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world. Here yesterday in Paris this morning is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning. How did you get to Paris all of a sudden overnight?
Good morning.
Anyway, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Ruben. Always a pleasure to hear your voice. Yes, we flew overnight. That's how we managed it. We left Lagos around midnight, got here around 6 a.m. So yeah, we make sure we're efficient when it comes to the travel. A very good morning to you all. Let me tell you about what is happening around the world. Now, as Dr. Ruben wonderfully said, we are here in Paris, France. And while it is a beautiful European city, one of my favorites, we are here to look at the coming of Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who arrived alongside the First Lady Senator Oluremi Tinubu yesterday. They are here for a 3-day state visit, and it's coming at a time of a lot of questions when it comes to the president's travel patterns. Now, for many people who've been wondering why it is that the president is taking yet another foreign trip, especially at a time of so much economic hardship in Nigeria, well, the official line that we've been told so far is that this is about the fostering and the renewing of Nigeria's relationship with France. So essentially what we're going to be seeing over the course of this next 3 days is specific and targeted meetings and forums between both of these gentlemen in order to establish a stronger relationship between the two of them. Now, for Nigeria specifically, it's going to be very key that the presidency deliver their ideas, their goals for these 3 days, what it is that they are hoping to achieve, so that when the Nigerian population are following behind this trip, they'll be able to be informed about what it is their president is coming to do in France and what benefits that they can seek to look forward to. In terms of the areas of development, the areas of conversation, it's going to be looking at business, the economy, but also agriculture, finance, technology, and a whole host of different areas of development that Nigeria is hoping to bring back information and hopefully funding and investment for Nigerians in the country. I have just dropped my mic flag, but never to worry. Staying there, though, with France too, it is believed that this is going to be a mutually beneficial relationship between the two countries. We already know that in terms of banking finance, Nigerian banks already enjoy quite a esteemed presence in France, in Paris too. We already know that Access Bank, for one, had already established a presence in Paris, in France, and just recently, just yesterday, Zenith Bank also opened up shop in Paris. So it just shows an example of the fostering of economic and financial relationships, especially in the banking industry, between the two different countries. In terms of what we can expect from the meetings, we do know that over the course of the 3 days, both gentlemen, both presidents will be hosted by the France-Nigeria Business Commission, and that again will be another opportunity to understand what the prospects are for development in those key areas. But it's not just the gentlemen talking. The First Ladies, Brigitte Macron and also Senator Oluremi Tinubu, will be meeting to discuss women empowerment initiatives, talking about development and looking at ways to foster better outcomes for children and vulnerable populations in both countries, especially in Nigeria, especially under the umbrella of the Senators' Renewed Hope initiative. So we are going to be expecting that both the presidents themselves and their first ladies are going to be making the most of this time. Staying with today's agenda, though, we do know that later on this morning there will be a photo opportunity where both presidents, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and of course Emmanuel Macron, will coming together, shaking hands, and then they'll make their way to Elysee Palace for a bilateral meeting. There'll also be some form of an economic forum and also a press conference, so that we're hoping we'll be able to hear specifically from the president or the presidency what it is on your list of agenda. What are you hoping to achieve? This can't just be a photo exercise. There has to be some tangible prospects coming out. So hopefully we'll be able to hear that in the press conference. And then later on today, there will be a state dinner where more Nigerian representatives will be here across the different areas of sectors. The creative industry are likely to be represented. And we already know that Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is also here. He also welcomed the president. So we're keeping our eyes on this state visit and also making sure that we're keeping the presidency accountable and we are able to understand what the prospects, what the goals for this trip are, and whether or not he'll materialize them by the end of the trip. Staying in France, though, another story that has definitely been dominating world news is that of Marine Le Pen's embezzlement trial. It has just ended. here in Paris. And though we are going to have to wait some 5 to 6 months for a verdict, the verdict is likely to be delivered in spring of 2025. It will be very interesting to find out whether or not the outcome of that verdict, of that trial, will mean that Marine Le Pen will be ineligible to run for president. We do know for the entirety of her political career, she has the ambitions to become president. And with this trial, let me actually tell you about the trial itself. It's about one on embezzlement. Marine Le Pen, along with 25 other members of her National Rally Party, are accused of misappropriating funds from the European Union Parliament that's supposed to be paid towards European Union parliamentary aids. Instead, they have been accused of using those monies and paying members of their party staff between 2004 and 2016. These are allegations and charges that Marine Le Pen and the rest of her colleagues have denied, but it is, of course, very serious. They've gone through an entire trial, and depending on what the outcome of this trial is, if the verdict does find her and the other defendants guilty, it will be interesting to find out if that will make her or render her ineligible to stand for public office again. We do know that she has been hoping to unseat President Macron come the next elections in 2027. Very interested to hear your thoughts before we move on to the papers.
All right, real quickly, thank you so much, Femi. Oh, goodness me, ooh la la, à la Paris. Let me go straight to it as regards Marine Le Pen. The truth has to be said. Marine Le Pen and a movement pretty much has a big problem. It was said, and I had seen some of the court depositions, the evidence is really overwhelming, up to the point of text messages that was sent. It was said that they used some of, the EU money to be able to do some party work. And what are going to be the penalties if she's found guilty? But anyway, she has started gaslighting people just like Trump did. She said there's a witch hunt, they don't want her to run for presidency. Yes, she might not be able to run for politics for 5 years. She might also pay a fine and also, have a suspended sentence, of about 5 years. That's it in the works for her. But the court will decide. In fact, she has already gone on TV the other day in France to be able to say that people were prejudiced against her. Even the prosecutor was prejudiced against her and all of that. But the question is, those evidence are really overwhelming. And it might be a hard one for Marine Le Pen to come out. But even if she doesn't do politics for 5 years, she's been able to groom people at the Front National. That's the interesting part. The fact that, she had recently, I think, if my memory serves me, Labadi or something, the guy that, did so well in the polls and all of that. And they have also moved the needle as regards French elections. And it was just, because there was a grand coalition. That's why the likes of, could defeat Marine Le Pen. That's the likes of the current president of France, Macron could defeat Marine Le Pen. So let's not deceive ourselves. There's a big wave of right-wing nationalism all over Europe. Marine Le Pen stands a chance of being a leader of a party that will be able to take the balance in France someday. The moderates will always try to have their way. And Nigerian president being in Paris, let's see how the dialogue and the conversations will go on for him as regards getting the most trade and investment we want in this country. If item has many areas, he's going to be talking to various stakeholders in.
All right, then, bonjour, Mademoiselle Femi, of course. Now, just looking at, Tinubu's presence, of course, in France. We talked about it briefly yesterday on What's Trending and about the fact that Nigerians were very wary of his reason for going there. And we do know that the military coup and shifting allegiances have reduced France's influence on the African continent, with several countries starting to turn their backs on the former colonial ruler. But this makes Tinubu's visit to France a positive sign for President Emmanuel Macron, who has sought a renewal, between Paris and the African continent since his 2017 election. So, Nigeria being the continent's leading oil producer, we have a thriving film industry. There's so many other investments that we could have here, but the challenges posed by insecurity and corruption, of course, have left 30 million Nigerians, more than half of the country's population living below the poverty line. So this this visit in itself, of course, represents an opportunity to tap into the economic investment. And Tinubu and Macron, just like you rightfully said, set to meet at the Franco-Nigerian Business Council, this forum that is designed to develop new partnerships between economic players in both countries. And I'm just hoping that it's not one of those trips where we just talk about it and we don't see actions, and we actually see results, and we see an impact from this trip that the president and, of course, Oluremi Tinubu, his wife, have taken to France.
Okay, President Tinubu is visiting France at a very interesting time. As you have pointed out, today he will be at the Les Invalides, he will be at the Palais d'Élysée, and he will also have, in the course of his visit, reception. There will be meetings with the France-Nigeria Business Council. So, you expect that there will be a lot of business people there. As you pointed out, it's about what Nigeria gains from it, what Nigeria is able to benefit from it. There are many, French companies doing business in Nigeria. And it is interesting, as you pointed out, that Zenith Bank is opening a branch. We also have Access Bank, which is also a truly international bank. So there must be benefit at the business-to-business level and also at the people-to-people level. Now, the other thing is that people have been complaining about President Tinubu traveling so frequently. This will be about his 38th or 31st, trip since he assumed office. He's been abroad for about 156 or more days. If you join him and the vice president, that is, who has visited about 12 countries repeatedly, but the president has done more mileage of over 156 miles. But I keep making the point that the president is the chief foreign policy officer of the country, and Nigeria cannot survive in isolation. Nigeria has to look for investment, relate with people. So, that point has to be made. But we expect that the benefits will be properly calibrated in terms of investments and that the benefits are mutual. France, I said yesterday, is in France's interest losing grip in Africa, to re-engage with Africa. When President Tinubu first assumed office, his first trip, even before he assumed, when he assumed office, his first trip, June 30, 2023, was to this same France for private reasons, and he went there again and again.
Yes.
His first official trip was the Africa Summit, New Pact with Africa Partnership Summit. That was in August 2023. But now it's good to see him going there for official reasons, and that Nigerians will hopefully appreciate what that's about. He's in France at an interesting moment, at a time when the parliament, is having issues, and the head of government is likely to lose his position as a result of controversies over, what is it called now, budget. With Michel Barnier saying that, look, that budget has to be supported. And then issues about, borrowing costs and all of that, and speculations that Michel Barnier may lose his position and a new government will have to be formed. Now, the other major issue is what you mentioned, that France is dealing with, Marine Le Pen. Now, when Marine Le Pen first appeared in court on September 30, she was so confident. Being a lawyer, she wanted to cooperate with Justice Dethie, I think that's the name, and until it became very obvious that the evidence provided by the prosecutors were overwhelming within, the hearings over the 2 months. Now, they have changed tact because the prosecutors are making very heavy demands. They are asking for jail sentences. They are asking for fines. They are asking for all the persons that are indicted and that will be convicted to be, sentenced and punished relative to their degree of involvement between 2004 and 2016, when Marine Le Pen was a member of the European Parliament and also the leader of the National Rally, formerly National Front, under her father, who started the party. And now she's on the defensive. Like her father, she's saying this is conspiracy. Like Donald Trump, she's saying that this is a witch hunt. But we should all keep our fingers crossed till March 31st, Wednesday, March 31st, 2025, when the judge says she would, the court would decide on the matter. So interesting development on the domestic front in Paris. That's not why President Tinubu is there. What we are interested in is the investments.
So,
thank you very much.
agreed, agreed. Thank you all for your great analysis. That was such a lovely chat. Now, let me tell you about the newspapers all over the world. And of course, we will begin in Nigeria with the front cover of This Day. And I tell you something, Dr. Reuben, Sheiton, and Rufai, even in Paris, I heard about the ruckus that took place in the Senate. That is, of course, what we're hearing on the front pages of This Day. If we take a look at the front page of This Day, it leads, of course, with the rowdy session in the Senate over the controversial tax reform bill. As you've already stated, the trouble did start when Senate leader Michael Bamidele Okpeyemi suspended Senate rules to allow the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service to give clarification on this tax reform bill and seek support. The Daily Sun also leads with this ruckus in the Senate on its front page. If we move now to the New Telegraph, the New Telegraph reports on the House of Representatives summoning the central bank governor, Olayemi Cardoso, as well as the chief executive officers of a number of commercial banks in Nigeria to appear before it to propose solutions to the challenges posed by the lack of documentation of point-of-sale users. POS is what we call them in Nigeria across the country. Now, moving on, both the Vanguard and the Punch this morning, they report on former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello being remanded back into the custody of the EFCC after a high court in Abuja set December 10th for the ruling on his application for bail. So he's going to have to wait until December 10th to see if he'll be released from the EFCC's custody. He is accused, of course, of money laundering and fraud to the tune of 110 billion naira. The Punch, in addition to this, also reports on the marketers threatening to boycott the Port Harcourt refinery. They've outlined conditions that will make them patronize this newly opened, rehabilitated facility in River State. They insist that PMS must be cheaper than Dangote's own. The NNPCL delays have delayed price portal opening, and that has angered some marketers there. Moving on to the front page of The Guardian now, and nearly 555,000 investors have abandoned their dividends in 9 blue chip firms over value erosions. This is, of course, raising concerns about the efficiency of the electronic dividend program. And as well as delving into the House of Reps' approval of the 2025 to 2027 medium-term expenditure framework, the Daily Independent also reports that the federal government has spent 8.8 billion naira to repair the 128 vandalized power towers in the last 11 months. Moving on to Ghana, where the Daily Graphic leads with the country's electoral commission saying that it will conduct the best polls in Ghana's history. We do know that next month, December 7th, Ghanaians will take to the polls to choose their next president. And then finally, to the United Kingdom, the Daily Telegraph reports that Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch has accepted responsibility for her party's failure on migration and has vowed to establish a visa cap and crack down on access to benefits in her first major speech as party leader. Those are your papers from around the world.
All right, then thank you so much, Adefemi. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go into those stories, but do enjoy your trip, and we'll be expecting to hear more from you.